Now, throughout this class, we'll be dealing with portfolios quite a lot. And so the idea of a portfolio is you have a collection of assets that you want to invest in, and then you just spread your wealth amongst those different assets and you create a portfolio. So a portfolio is just a collection of assets you're going to invest in. So let's look at a case where we have a two-asset portfolio. So say we have V dollars to invest in. So you have $1,000 to invest in and two assets to invest in. And I like Northwest stock, so we can have Amazon and Boeing, all right, A and B. And so we define a portfolio by how much of our wealth we invest in each of the securities. And we define these portfolio shares, say XA, or this would be the share of our initial wealth that we have invested in Amazon. So if we have $1,000 and we put half of our wealth in Amazon, then our portfolio share would be 50% in Amazon. And then if we have 50% in Amazon, and then we would have the remaining 50% in Boeing, then XB would be also equal to 50%. If we put $100 in Amazon, 100 divided by 1,000 would be 10%, then XA would be 10%, and then XB would be 90%. So these portfolio shares just tell us from a percentage point of view what is the fraction of our wealth invested in the different securities. And when we study portfolios, we generally assume that we exhaust all of our wealth amongst the assets that we have. So if we have $1,000 and we have two assets to invest in, we assume that we put all of our money in one of these two assets. Okay. So then our portfolio is completely determined by the portfolio shares. Different portfolios are just different values of XA and XB. So now what we want to do is we want to think about what is the rate of return on a portfolio over a given holding period, and how does that rate of return on the portfolio relate to the rates of return on the individual securities A and B. So this should be capital V. If I had my tablet PC, I could scribble that out, but thank you. I'll fix that. All right, so what about the, so we want to do, what is the rate of return on a portfolio? So the idea is that we invest in XA of Amazon, XB of Boeing today. We hold that portfolio for 1 month, and then we sell it at the end of the month. What's the rate of return on that portfolio? So we can define the future value of the portfolio. So we start with our initial investment, and that investment grows to 1 plus the portfolio rate of return. And so we want to determine what is this portfolio rate of return. Well, we have our initial investment V, and so we have two components to the portfolio. We have Amazon and we have Boeing. And so this is V times 1 plus RA. So this is the future value if we invested everything in Amazon, but we want to weight that by the fraction of wealth that we put in Amazon. So this is the portion of our portfolio that grows with our investment in Amazon. And then this is the portion of our portfolio that grows with our investment in Boeing. So if we had invested everything in Boeing, then this would be the future value of the investment, but we only invest XB in Boeing, so this is what we get out of our investment in Boeing. So now we can take this relationship, we can split it up, because we have XA times 1, XA times RA, XB times 1, XB times RB. So that gives us XA plus XB, and then we have XA, RA, XB, RB. But the portfolio shares are assumed to add to 100%. XA plus XB is equal to 1. So that reduces down to 1. So we see that our future value of our portfolio is equal to V times 1 plus XARA plus XBRB. So we can, so that this looks just like this, where the return on the portfolio is XARA plus XBRB. So we have this very nice result that when we have a portfolio of assets, the rate of return on the portfolio is how much you invest in asset A times the rate of return on asset A plus how much you invest in asset B times the rate of return on asset B. So rates of returns on portfolios are linear combinations of rates of returns on the individual securities. That's a nice result. Okay. So here's an example. So you'll have a portfolio of Microsoft and Starbucks. All right? So we purchased 10 shares of each stock at the end of month T-1, and the prices of these stocks are 80 and 30. And again, we have 10 shares of each. So the initial value of the portfolio at time T-1 is our 10 shares of Microsoft plus the 10 shares of Starbucks, so that we have $1,100 initially in our portfolio. And what are our portfolio shares? The share of our wealth in Microsoft is equal to our 10 shares times 80 divided by $1,100. And so that's 72% of our wealth is in Microsoft. And our percentage of our portfolio in Starbucks is our 10 shares times 30, 300 divided by our portfolio value. So we have 27% in Starbucks. And notice that these portfolio weights add up to 1. Now, at the end of month T, my price of Microsoft has gone from 80 to 90, but the price of Starbucks has gone from 30 to 28. So we made money on Microsoft, but we lost money on Starbucks. What is the rate of return on our portfolio? So we just use our formula. It's the portfolio shares times the rates of returns on the individual securities. Okay? So the rate of return on Microsoft is percentage change in price over the month, so that's 5.88%. The rate of return on Starbucks, percentage change in price, and that's minus 6.7%. So my portfolio return is how much I invest in Microsoft times the rate of return on Microsoft, plus how much I invest in Starbucks times the rate of return on Starbucks, and that's 2.45%. And so my portfolio grew at 2.45% over the month, so my $1,100 grew to $1,126.95. Okay? So it's an illustration of a portfolio rate of return calculation. All right. So very often when we do calculations, it's easiest to do the calculation when you have two assets, just to get the intuition of what the formula looks like. And then very often the formula is generalized to more than two assets relatively easily. And this is true with the portfolio rate of return calculation. So suppose you have a portfolio that has N assets. And N can be big, like 500. So you invest in the S&P 500 stock index. There are 500 assets in that portfolio. What's the rate of return on the S&P 500? Well, it's a weighted average of the rates of return of each of the securities in the S&P 500. So my portfolio rate of return is the sum of all the portfolio weights times the rates of return on the individual securities. So we get X1, R1T, XN, RNT. So another thing to illustrate as well. So when we get to more than two assets, our formulas for showing the result here involve some summations. What we'll see when we start studying portfolio theory a little bit more is that the formulas that we use involving summations are going to get kind of long and messy. And it turns out that we're going to be able to simplify the expressions of these formulas using a little bit of matrix algebra. And that is, we can consider a vector of portfolio weights and a vector of returns. And this portfolio return is a weighted average here. But if you know a little bit of matrix algebra, this is just the cross product of two vectors.